Welcome to Patricia's Potpourri. And please be aware that this episode and any previous episode of Patricia's Potpourri is available to you anytime at YouTube. Once again, I have a famous, a fabulous, a fantastic guest for you. And he's going to introduce himself. You are...
Hi, good afternoon. Yeah, I'm Kevin Ikim Dunn, the creator and founder of Puzzles for Us.
What are puzzles for us? And why did you... What are puzzles for us?
That's a good question. Puzzles for Us is a series of crossword and word search puzzle books that I created. And the idea is to document, to tell our story, but in a fun way. So I came up with the idea to create, a series of coloring books, word search puzzle books, crossword puzzle books, for children and adults that document our story, but not just about, the things that we may have done a long time ago, but things that we're doing now, because we have a rich history, which unfortunately doesn't get told all the time.
Wow. So these are Afrocentric coloring books and puzzle books.
Yes. Yes.
Did you create it?
Oh, yes. I started like years ago. It's been about the idea, and it's funny, I tell people all the time, sometimes you have an idea for something, but it doesn't really gain traction right away. So it took me years. I remember in the 90s, I had the idea to do like some puzzles because at the time my children, they were younger, and I wanted to do something for them for Black History Month, kind of like to keep them engaged. But the idea just sat there, and I didn't do anything with it. And I think I played around and I created one puzzle, but that was it. Then some years later, I was messing around with a puzzle, and I put together one. I think hip hop, rap was becoming big, and they was all into it. So I wanted to do something about rappers, which I did, And my sister saw the puzzle, and she thought it was a great idea, and she said, "Wow, you onto something there. You should do something with that." And so that became kind of like the foundation, the roots of it.
I know. I remember seeing you at a fair,
Yes.
and some of the children, they were just overwhelmed because they said the characters in your books they could identify with.
Exactly. And that's the whole idea. Exactly. Is because a lot of time, unfortunately, whether it's in the schools or just in the general media, we don't see a lot of positive images that look like us, and we don't hear a lot of positive stories that reflect us. So the idea with the Puzzles for Us series was to tell our story, and to highlight it in a positive way. So this way, when youngsters pick up the books, they'll see images and they'll read stories about people that not only look like them, but people that a lot of times come from the same communities they come out of.
Wow. Mr. Dunn, these are not just, you have coloring books.
Yes.
You have puzzle books.
Yes.
And word search books.
Exactly.
Wow, that's absolutely fabulous, Mr. Dunn. So somebody can reinforce their education through just one of your puzzle books.
Exactly.
Wow.
Because here's the thing, like you said, I believe we met at an event at Mind Builders, and so I do a lot of events, throughout the year, a lot of the festivals, the cultural festivals, and so what happens is that with the puzzle books. The idea is to tell stories. So people come up to me and they say, "Wow, this is great. What makes your puzzle books different?" Because all the puzzle books I create, they all have stories. Like say, for example, in the Piecing It Together, which is this book here, which is written for teenagers and I say other folks too. The other folks too could be adults and or younger, whoever's reading at a certain age level. But I have stories in here about Taraji Henson, about Claudette Colvin. She's a 15-year-old girl who 9 months before Rosa Parks refused to give up a seat on the bus. She refused to give up her seat.
I learned about that because you and I were both at an event.
Exactly.
And she was before Rosa Parks.
Right.
And they said that Senator Ruben Diaz honored her recently.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was at that event. Actually, it was several years ago. He honored her right here in the Bronx because she actually lives here in the Bronx. She's been living here for the past 30, 40 years. But see, that's the thing. And see, again, that's one of the reasons why I do this series, because a lot of times, we really don't know the history. We get like sound bites, You know, even during like what they call Black History Month or African History Month, we get sound bites, and then when the month is over, we go back to just, you know, business as usual. But the thing is, we have a rich ongoing history, you know, that just didn't. It's not just about who did things yesterday, and like I said in my literature, I said it's about not only who did what, but it's about who's doing what now. And so you have folks that's still alive, that's doing like, you know, outstanding things. And Miss Claudette Colvin, she's one of those individuals, you know, who kind of like has been under the radar for a number of years. And I had a chance to meet her when she was up here, when she was being honored here in the Bronx. And she told me, she said, yeah, she was ostracized like after she refused to give up a seat, you know, when she went back to school. She had to, you know, stay out of school for a little while because some kids, they didn't really understand. They thought she was a troublemaker, you know, because you got to remember, you know, in the context of the times, you know, the white folks in Montgomery, Alabama, you know, if you broke the law, I mean, that was a big thing to them. And so for you to refuse to give your seat, you know, that was not something that was looked on favorably. And even a lot of the blacks during that time, you know, they kind of like had mixed feelings about it, because you got to think, white folks, they was going to like say, well, look, okay, you're breaking our law, so we're going to make you pay for it. So there was kind of like what you would call it, some kind of pushback. So sometimes some of the children, hey, they didn't want to be seen with Claudette.
I got two things to say.
Sure.
That's how kind of even how I had a teacher here
Right.
not too long ago, and if you speak out or do something, even other people kind of ostracize you.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
and that's not only for her, but for a lot of time when you're outspoken, they want to,
That's
you
it.
know, they want you to keep quiet. And also, I want you to repeat her name again,
Sure.
so we'll know who she is in Black history, and she's before Rosa Parks.
Exactly. She lived in the same town. Her
And
family.
she's living today.
She
She's
still lives
living
today.
history.
She's about 79 years old at this time, because when I met her, it was like in 2012, 2013. Right. Her name is Claudette Colvin. Claudette Colvin. There's information on my website if you want to go to my website.
Please tell us what your website is.
It's puzzlesforus.com. That's puzzles, Puzzles, FORUS.com. You know, or they could just go on YouTube or Google Claudette Colvin, and her name will come up. You know, there's information out there about her.
Would information about her be in these puzzle books?
Of course. That's one reason why I brought it up. Yes, I have a story, again, in the Piecing It Together. It's called She's a Stand-Up Girl, because she stood up when other people during her time weren't standing up. And she was 15 years old. And I do a series where I go into high schools. It's a life lesson series. And I use that story because the young people, you know, in 9th, 10th grade, they can relate to it. And I tell them, look, you're never too young or too old to stand up for what you believe in. And you mentioned earlier that you were educated, that you actually taught in the schools. And the thing is, Claudette Colvin had two amazing teachers. You know, they were both African American, and they were instilling in their students' heads that you have a rich history and don't be ashamed of who you are. So when Claudette Colvin, when she left school that day and she got on the bus, you know, all that was fresh in her mind, that you have a rich history, be proud of who you are. So when they told her she had to get up and go to the back, she said, nah. You know, and they unfortunately dragged her off the bus. And the thing is, that a lot of people don't know, is that Claudette Colvin, it's her name that's on the case that desegregated the buses in Montgomery, Alabama, and not Rosa Parks. You know, and I mean, we celebrate and honor Rosa Parks, and rightly so. But I think as part of telling the full story, we have to also acknowledge, you know, the contribution that Claudette Colvin made.
Fabulous.
Yes.
You know, which makes me realize that these books are not just for children.
Exactly.
So could you tell us about the books are for children and adults too?
Yes.
Please tell
Yes.
us a little bit.
You know, I joke and I said from age 5 to 95. Anybody that loves a good story, that loves a good puzzle, and wants to know more about their history, you know, the books are for them. So we have like the crossword connection for some of the older kids and adults.
Wow.
You know, and so in this book we have is also crossword puzzle and Sudoku puzzles, but I call it So You Know Too. And so the idea is that whatever I know, because in African communities, you know, it's all about, you know, sharing. So whatever I know, the idea is for you to know too. So in the So You Know Too puzzles, the concept is similar to a Sudoku, but the idea is about sharing information. You know, and so which is, you know, similar to like what I do with the rest of the puzzles. It's about connecting the dots. Like even the name of the book, Piecing It Together, is about, getting pieces of the puzzle because for a long time, our history has been scattered. We get a little bit here, a little bit there, but never the whole story. And as Dr. John Henry Clark used to say, he said, yeah, I see you smiling. You
Yeah,
remember,
because I was from neighborhood board number 5. I was a
there you
stipend
go.
youth. I went to civilization classes in the
There you go,
basement
yes.
of the original. I'm about to cry. The original
Wow.
Schaumburg, the one on
Wow.
135th Street. He and so many people
Yes.
gave us. We called it civilization classes.
I remember, yes, yes. And he was a large influence on my life as well. I read, a lot
And
of his
Dr.
books.
Ben.
Of course, Dr. Ben. That was like, they were, you seen one, you seen the other.
Yes.
Right. But, what he used to say, like, often in his speeches, he said what we refer to as black history or African history is really world history. It's really the missing pages of world history. And the reason why it's missing is because for too long and for so long, other people have been telling the story. And when other people aside from us tell the story, and it doesn't really put them in a good light, of course they're going to leave stuff out.
It's the funniest thing you say that because I think at one time, New York State wanted to do inclusion in the
Yes.
curriculum. So I was going to Albany for this curriculum.
Right.
And I told Dr. Clark, because I saw him at St. Philip's Church, that I was going up there to try out so I can be a part of the inclusion,
Yes.
see if I could do inclusion. And he let me know. He said, they're not going to really let you do what you've been learning all of that time. Because he knew me from Dr. Ben and being
Yes,
and
yes.
Carl Campbell and being in the basement of the Schaumburg.
Wow.
And he was absolutely right.
Right, exactly. Because,
But I went to Albany anyway. Even
Okay.
with the problems I had with my car, I went anyway.
Right.
I went to try out for that inclusion in the
curriculum of inclusion. I remember because even I believe Leonard Jeffries, he has some involvement with that as well in the region of Adelaide, Sanford. So there was a lot of folks that had some input into that. But it's interesting that you mentioned that because the thing is that's why it's important that we tell our story. So which brings me back to why I do puzzles for us because it's telling our story. And see the thing is the central characters and the themes in the books, the puzzle books, are universal, but the central characters are folks that look like us, or what you would say or refer to as people of color. But the puzzle could be for anybody. Like in some of the books, I have stories about bullying, have stories about entrepreneurship, have stories about Taraji Henson, the actress, who's a great granddaughter of Matthew Henson, who was the first person to reach the North Pole.
Wow.
Right.
I did not. I know because they wanted us to think Admiral Perry was the first
Exactly.
one that reached the. But we because I was a stipend youth for neighborhood board number
you
5.
knew.
I knew
Exactly.
the truth from Dr. Ben.
Right, because as the story goes, that Admiral Perry, he became ill, and so he couldn't continue on. I think he was frostbitten and something else was going on. So it was Matthew Henson that actually reached the North Pole. And see, Matthew Henson, he spoke the Inuit, which is, the folks that we refer to as Eskimos.
The indigenous people.
The indigenous people in that area, he was on good terms with them. And so he was actually the first one to reach the North Pole. And so Taraji Henson, she's a great-granddaughter or great-granddaughter of his.
That is so interesting.
Exactly. So one of the stories I share about her is that before she became a famous actress, she auditioned for Performing Arts High School, and she got rejected. So she developed a fear of rejection. So I have a puzzle in the book called Fear Factor. So it's about all the stuff that we're afraid of: fear of heights, fear of rejection, fear of failure. And so she talks about how she overcame her fear of rejection and eventually went on to become a successful actress that we know today.
And a Howard University grad.
Exactly.
Where I really wanted to go. But I ended up at Queens College and I did well.
Well, yeah. But the fact is you went to college and you got your degree and you went on to do some outstanding things. And so, which really goes back to the idea of that each of us have to use our God-given gifts in ways that we're inspired and led to use them. And so like how you do this program and then you taught in the schools and then the other stuff that you're involved in, that's a way of giving back to the community and using, the gifts and talents that you've been given. In my case, I love to write, I love to tell stories. So why not tell stories about us that highlights us and our history in a positive way? Yes.
Wow. What else are you doing any other thing besides the puzzle books? Are there any other
Yes.
thing? Yeah, you
Yeah.
are. Tell me about it, please.
Yes. I'm glad you asked. One of the things I've done, this is my most recent book, is a coloring book. It's called All About Me, What I See, What I Can Be. Because when I used to, do the events and show folks the puzzle books, they said, wow, you have anything for the younger kids, like age 3 and up? And I said, sure. And I say, oh, at the time, I'm working on something. So it took a few years for me to come out with this. But now, so we highlight folks like Bob Marley, Lisa Price from Carol's Daughter. So what I wanted to do with this book is to do something a little different. Because we mentioned Rosa Parks, and we hear a lot about her and Dr. King, but very seldom do we hear about people like Percy Julian. Like most of us.
Oh, I know about Percy.
You know about Percy Julian?
Of course.
Okay.
Okay. With the seeds, the
soybean.
The soybean.
Exactly.
I worked on a project with some teachers about Black History Month.
Right.
I had one teacher, and she said, I don't want to hear about Dr. Martin Luther King. I don't want to hear about Rosa Parks. I don't want to hear about those, because we have an idea that finds an unsung hero.
Exactly. You see.
Wow.
Yeah, and see, that's because a lot of folks have never heard. They've heard of George Washington Carver, but what George Washington Carver did with the peanut, Percy L. Julian,
with the soy.
He did with the soybean.
Yes, I know.
Like drugs like cortisone and the treats like
Tell us more. So I think my audience should know about Percy Julian.
Right. Well, yeah, I profiled. Let me see if I could pull up a picture of him so they could get a look. Percy L. Julian. Mm-hmm. Right. So
he'll get
exactly, and he's referred to as a forgotten genius, because he took the soybean. He created literally hundreds of products from the soybean: paints, soaps, similar to what George Washington Carver did with the peanut. He created cortisone, to treat arthritis and
the cortisone
rheumatism.
shots that people. Yeah.
Exactly. So he was a pioneer in that field. Amazing. And actually, he lived not that long ago. He died maybe, I don't remember the exact date, but probably in the 60s or 70s. Right,
Wow.
so which is not that long ago. That's fairly recent history. Mm-hmm. And so that's the other thing, behind the Puzzles for series is that, we do have a rich history. Yes, our history goes back literally hundreds of thousands of years, but there's a lot of people, contemporary folks, that's doing some amazing stuff now. There's a doctor from out of Harlem. Her name is Dr. Patricia Hazell.
I know about Patricia Hazell.
So
tell us about her.
You know about everybody. You see,
I love Black history.
Right.
And I know the kids that I have worked with, I emerged, and I had a chance to work in the Bronx on Washington. So I was working with a population of mostly African American children, and they loved knowing about themselves.
Isn't that something? That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead, tell me more.
No, but see, that's it. When you share these stories with them, they come alive, they get excited, and they get engaged, because it's about people that look like them. And a lot of times, these people are still living. Like Dr. Patricia Hazell, she's still alive.
Tell us more about.
She invented something called the laser-focal probe, which treats cataracts. And she's the first African-American woman doctor to receive a patent for a medical invention.
And is there a connection with her with Harlem too?
Well, I know she was born and raised in Harlem. I don't know what the connection is now. I don't know if she still lives in the Harlem
at that
community.
time.
But I know she's originally from Harlem. She grew up right here in Harlem. So she's a local
Harlem
girl.
Black girl.
That's right. Right straight out of Harlem. Yeah. And then Mark Dean, he helped to revolutionize. Everybody uses a personal computer now, but he was part of the team at IBM, the team of engineers that helped to revolutionize.
What's the name of the person again?
Dr. Mark Dean. He's a scientist, award-winning engineer. He's still alive. And so the fact that we have a keyboard that you can type, he was part of the team that created that technology. If you use a mouse, for all them kids that's playing video games and using joysticks, which they don't use as much anymore, he was one of the individuals that helped to revolutionize that technology. His name is Dr. Mark Dean. And the amazing thing, when he was a kid, he attributes his success to his grandfather. He said his grandfather liked to tinker with stuff, but his grandfather told him that there was always more than one way to do something. So don't get stuck. You know, if you feel like you're stuck here and this way is not working, be open to trying something different. And that stayed with him. So as he grew up, he said, okay, if this is not working, let me see if I could try something else. And that's a good metaphor for our lives.
Wow.
Right.
And if you can't do it one way,
Exactly.
find another way of doing it.
There's always a way. And like how the young folks say today, you know, well, if you don't know, ask somebody. And sometimes we you know, ego and other reasons, sometimes we're a little hesitant to let people know that we don't know. But they say how ignorance is the beginning of knowledge. The way I learned, I tell folks I didn't start out knowing all this stuff, but because I had an interest and wanted to know more about my history and our history, I took time to learn. And when I didn't know, I asked people. And in your case, you were fortunate. You have folks like Dr. Clark, Dr. Ben, and others in your life, you know, pouring in the history into you. So you grew up in an environment where they were nurturing you, which was important.
And it's the funniest thing because my mother told me, I'm a second generation, I don't know, a Harlem black girl, because my mother lived 115th Street, grew up 115th Street, and I, between Lenox and St. Nicholas Avenue.
Oh, nice.
And they went to Wadley High School, and it was a high school at one time, and they said that they learned Black history.
Wow.
They were teaching Black history there. They were teaching. I said, wow, you know.
Isn't that something? That's amazing. And we're talking what, the 50s, the 40s?
Yeah.
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 That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. But see, you have folks who dedicate themselves, because I don't think that was part of the curriculum.
I don't know. They didn't tell me who taught. I should have asked, but it's too late now.
Right.
But they were. I know that there was such an interest in Black history in my home. And I know my mother was in luck with Malcolm X. So.
Wow. But you see why it's so important. And again, that's why when I created the series, I didn't do it just for children. I created puzzles for adults too, because the adults model the behavior. In your case, you had parents that were into Black history, so you grew up in a household, an environment that was immersed in the culture. So if a parent picks up a puzzle book and they start getting into it, and the kids in their household see them with the book, then guess what? They're going to want to do the same too. And that's how it works. You know, it's like a trickle down, you know. So yeah, so the idea is to make it fun. So I tell them it's from age 5 to 95, you know, the stories, the puzzles are for you.
Do you have, Mr. Dunn, Mr. Kevin Dunn?
Yes.
Do you have any new books coming out?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. Yes, actually I'm working, you know, me and my partner, Sandra Harvey, we're working on the book now. We're collaborating on a new book. It's more of a motivational kind of thing. What we're doing in our new book is we're telling stories of people that had challenges in their life and overcome them. Well, here's one, Ernestine Shepherd. She's about 80-something now. She became a world-renowned bodybuilder,
Wow.
a world-class bodybuilder in her 70s and 80s. I think she was like 80 years old. You know, she's all you. If you Google Ernestine Shepherd, or if you go to YouTube, you see pictures of her posing. She's amazing, and you know, she said, you know, and she tells folks, she said, look, age is just a number, because I mean, she's down there, she's doing push-ups, she's running marathons, and she's 80 plus. Wow. She looks fantastic. She looks fantastic. You know, so she's one of the people who we're going to profile in our new book, because we want to tell stories, you know, to give people hope, to inspire folks, to let them know it's never too late. You know, actually another person that we profile in the book is Dr. Barbara Hillary. She's from here in New York, in Far Rockaway. She's the first African, and she's still alive. She's in her 80s as well. In her 60s, she was diagnosed with, she had lung cancer, and I think she had a lung removed. But she had a dream. She wanted to become the first African American woman to go to the North Pole. Now, we was talking about Matthew Henson, who was the first African American male. So Dr. Barbara Hillary, she's the first African American woman. Ooh. And she did this like in the 70s. And I think she was 77 when she did it. Wow. Exactly. So she's another person that we profile. I think for years she was a nurse. She worked as a nurse, then she retired. Then she found out she had cancer of the lungs, but she didn't let that stop her. So the idea behind the new book that we're working on is to inspire folks, to give them hope, to let folks know that, look, you may have challenges in your life. It could be a health challenge, it could be a financial challenge, no matter what it may be, that you could get through it and that your life still has meaning, it still has purpose, and you could do something meaningful and purposeful with your life. The idea is just not to give up. So with Dr. Barbara Hillary, she didn't give up. And not only did she go to the North Pole, I think a couple years later, she ended up being the first African-American woman to reach the South Pole as well.
Wow.
And these folks, they're still alive. You may pass these folks in the street and not know that this is someone, renowned who did this, really great thing, But they're showing that, look, age is just a number. Whatever your circumstance, whatever may be challenging in your life at this time, you can get through it. Sometimes it's a matter of asking for help. A lot of times we think that we have to do things all by ourselves, but we don't. Because there's people all around us all the time that's willing to help us. But these are the stories I tell with the Puzzles for a series,
Yeah. Mr. Kevin Dunn,
Yes.
I want to thank you so much for being here today. I have learned so much, and I'm a child of Black history. I love
Yes.
Black history. I want to shake your hand.
Thank you.
I want you to, would you please come on Patricia's Potpourri again and be my guest?
I would love to. I
Oh,
would love to.
and I appreciate what you are doing.
Thank you.
And these are African American characters, but just as though since we've always had books with other kind of characters that we used, now these are books that everyone can use, and I really
Yes.
like that. These are puzzles for everybody, and especially us.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
really like that,
Well, thank you. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for having me on the program.
Mr. Kevin Dunn, is there any special thing you would like to say to the audience?
Well, what I would like to just encourage everybody, look, whatever your dream is, whatever your goal, you may have been sitting on it for years, it's never too late, to live out your dreams, to live your best life, to be your best self. Just surround yourself with positive people. There's a lot of resources out there to assist you. So, all you have to do is ask, and then with the internet as a tool, go online, do some research, and whatever's in your heart to do, whatever is your gift, now's the time. Just do it.
Puzzles for us. Could you tell us how someone may get in contact with you once again?
Sure. They could visit my website at www.puzzlesforus.com, puzzlesforus.com. I'm on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. They could find Puzzles for Us or look for Mr. Puzzles, and I'll come up. Or they can call us at 718-538-6102, 718-538-6102. And we'll be happy to tell them more about the series.